Shares in Harena Resources have just about doubled over the last 3 months. The executive chairman of Harena himself, Ivan Murphy, joins us now for an update. Ivan, good morning to you.
Morning, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Yeah, I'm not surprised to hear that, given the state of the rare earths market at the moment. We've seen some real action there in the last few days. As a company with a significant exposure to rare earths, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, we are entirely exposed to rare earths,
Yes.
not significantly. So we have a rare earth project and a massive resource in Madagascar, as you know. So look, I just think that this has all come to a head in relation to the trade war effectively between China and the US and China's sort of stranglehold on these key elements and minerals that are so fundamental to building defense, robotics, AI, etc. So I think with the US being so focused on securing opportunities and supply outside of China that it's really driven the market. And we've seen incredible announcements, between the Chinese and the US, sort of tit for tatting on this subject. But notwithstanding the outcome of any of that, the US is very committed, and rightly so, I would say, to securing alternative supply chains around critical minerals and specifically rare earths.
Does this look to you like the beginning of a long upward leg for rare earths, or do you think there might be a correction coming along down the tracks?
I think this is going to be a very long upward curve for critical minerals broadly, including rare earths, obviously. But I just think the critical mineral space is the place to be, and you've got to be in it. I think that that's just where it is now. There's lots of availability once there's money to support these projects to improve the supply chain situation. But there is a bottleneck at the moment. These projects take time to come online, as you know. And I think the US strategy of putting markers down in certain projects in certain jurisdictions is a very smart way to tackle that. I think the UK and other Western governments could be doing the same thing.
So you talk about the US obviously as a key player, and you yourself and on behalf of Harena have been making inroads into the US recently, haven't you? Making various
Yeah.
high-level connections. Tell us a little bit about how that's been going.
Yeah, so I've been in DC now a couple of times, twice, in fact, over the last 6 or 7 weeks, and I'll be going back the minute the shutdown is over. At the moment, there's nothing you can do about that. But we've started to make contact with some of the government agencies there, particularly the DFC, who we've just had first contact with. And, we're looking forward to picking up those discussions with them after the shutdown is over. The DFC stand out as the one that's been really at the forefront of the sort of investment in critical minerals that is very in line with where we are. So they've already announced investments in Africa through Macongo and in a project in Brazil where they've invested £5 million in those companies, $5 million rather, to help them move forward into their feasibility and, push their projects along. So, we fit into that very same category. We would argue our project is better, obviously, but our project is certainly different, than some of those ones that they're looking at, insofar as we're ionized clays. We have a much simpler processing to get into production and probably a shorter timeline than some other projects they're looking at. So we think will be an attractive opportunity for them, and we'd certainly welcome the chance to work with them. It's always been our strategy to provide feedstock into the US supply chain, just a concentrate that can then be shipped for refining within the US or within, US controlled corporates.
So sticking with the theme of the US just for a minute longer, Ivan, you've got an OTC listing pending as well. Tell us what's happening there.
Yeah, so we've completed our application for that, and hopefully in the next week or two, we'll be able to announce when our trading date will be. It'll all be within the next few weeks. So that's really exciting for us. It's a first step on the US capital markets ladder, the OTC. So it'll give us that exposure to US investors, but also show that our commitment to our strategy with, working with government agencies and government, US corporates, is being defined by that. So, we're demonstrating that we're tilting ourselves towards that market, both in terms of partners, but also in terms of capital as we go forward. We've two key US institutions as shareholders, as you know, which has been declared, Wexford Capital out of Connecticut, and also Fondren LP, which is a significant family office and resources investor in Houston.
Yeah, so you're essentially gaining high visibility for the company in the US on several different levels.
Yeah, I would say that while we're doing that, we still very much believe in the London Stock Exchange. I've been around the London Stock Exchange for 30 years. So, I love it, and we believe in it, and it's always been a great home for mining. And we think with the mining story, turning back towards a favorable environment in terms of investors. It's also brilliant to have that main listing here on the London Stock Exchange, which we're very happy to have.
So let's talk about mining itself then. And we've been talking about the high level stuff for the last minute or so, but you've got a PFS in the works. What's the situation there? What can you tell us about the project and the PFS that's being built up around it?
Yeah, I mean, our PFS is getting close to completion, and that will be submitted all as part of our license upgrade for our production license, which we'll be putting that together this side of Christmas. The PFS will be completed, and we'll probably publish it. A lot of companies like ours will do that so that, analysts and things can get a better handle on the project. Everybody accepts now, and we're starting to get a lot of, you know, traction and interest in our story because of the scale of our resource. So that's great. And now it's important to start to demonstrate to the market that we have a process to get into production. And the pre-feasibility study is the first, serious document around that detail, environmental aspects, production aspects, lab work. And so that's an extensive, 290-page document. So that is coming to completion, and that'll be a big tool for us, to help take analysts deeper into the story, deeper into the processing, and show that there's a real path here to get into production within a very reasonable time frame. So that's all part of our pre-Christmas list, our OTC listing, our submission of our PFC, and probably the publishing of same, some engagement with some US agencies, government agencies or corporates. So, we have a busy kind of 8 weeks between here and Christmas.
I mean, it's a key point to appreciate about Harena, really, isn't it? That this isn't an exploration company at all. It's a company that's well on the way towards developing an asset and is setting out a clear path to production for itself.
Yeah, I mean, we are not an exploration company. I mean, I say that every time I'm interviewed
Yeah.
because it's really important to make that differentiation. We have a massive proven resource, more than we're going to need in any reasonable time frame. So we don't really need to actually spend any more money on exploration. It wouldn't make much sense to add to such a massive resource at the moment. So that's the first thing. And we're not a mining company in the sense that unless you have a deeper understanding of mining, we think of mining, which is we're not blowing up stuff and we're not crushing rocks. So, that's very important, not just from an environmental point of view and our ability to remediate very quickly, but it demonstrates that what we're doing here is surface work. These are ionized clays on the top, and we'll be treating those, in situ with some heap leaching and then moving on to the next section of that while that starts to regrow and remediate itself. So, that's a big difference. And it also shows that we have a much shorter timeline to get into the production. We can be in production here for our first concentrate within 2 years, which is really short in the world of mining, as you know. And I think that will start to set us apart from some other projects and make us continually more attractive for the people that we're talking to.
So these ionized clays that the rare earths are contained in sort of set you apart, don't they, from other rare earths companies, as you were just alluding to. But I think you're the only company with an asset like that in London, certainly.
Yeah, we're the only ionized clay project listed on the London Stock Exchange. There are other ionized clay projects in Brazil and one or two elsewhere, but the thing about it is it's really the reason that the Chinese control the market. They have these gift of Mother Nature, like we have across a massive area of ionized clays, which has allowed them to produce easily, separate easily, and build up an understanding of how to do that more than most were doing. So that's given them that kind of advantage and that kind of Mother Nature advantage, which has allowed them to take such a dominant position in that. So we have the same mineralization as them. So that's a big differentiating factor for us. I mean, rare earths aren't as rare as they sound, despite their name. They are quite. But what's rare is separating them and having them in the right combinations that are of value and of use, and that they're not, they're often associated with thorium and other pretty scary elements that make extracting them very difficult environmentally, in fact, sometimes almost impossible.
Yeah, so Ampasindava, that's the name of your project. The processing there will be fairly straightforward then, can we say? Or is that perhaps putting it too simply? But anyway, more straightforward than a hard rock operation would be.
No, I don't think it's putting it too simply, and it's part of the messaging we're kind of continuing to try and deliver each time, which is, this is a free dig situation, as they would
Yeah.
say in sort of mining circles. So, you are digging clay off the surface, clearing, treating, and then remediating as you go. And we use ammonia sulfate and also salt water, which is fortunate because we're on the coast. So, we have a very environmentally positive processing. Ammonia sulfate is a big part of fertilizer, as you know. And then obviously, Mother Nature in a place like this, which is jungle, is regrowing things as quickly as we're clearing them almost. So yeah, so no, it is kind of as easy as it sounds, or as straightforward, I would say. And logistically, with the addition of some improvement in some roads going down to the port area, we're also very fortunate, and we don't have a huge, we don't need to be building railroads or anything like that. We're up at the coast, so and quite near a port, and we don't have, because of we're not blowing up stuff and crushing rocks, we don't have a huge power requirement, which is another issue that a lot of projects face. They can be stranded, not just logistically, but from sources of power that they need, in vast countries like we have in Africa. So, we have a low power requirement. We're close to a port, and fairly limited infrastructure to put in place to get our concentrate down there.
So plenty really going for this project. You've got financial results coming up, I believe, quite soon, Ivan. What can we expect from those?
Yeah, I think they'll just be, pretty straightforward. Also, we've raised money. We've raised 1.6 million pounds in the last couple of weeks. So that's kind of funded us forward now for over the next sort of 12 months. And our kind of running costs are low on purpose, obviously, because we're very focused on our project. So no, I think they'll be in good tidying up. The RTO was only in March, and then, I've come and done a restructure since August. So with the financing, so, I think it'll kind of tie all that together, and we're kind of pleased then to have a nice set of, audited accounts going into the market. At the end of next week, I think we'll be making that. The audit will be completed, and the report and accounts at the end of next week.
Right. So the PFS is coming up, the accounts. Any other news flow that investors should be looking out for in the medium to the near to medium term?
Yeah, as I say, our pre-Christmas list is our OTC listing, some further engagement with US government agencies or corporates. Um, I think also some potentially publishing our PFS, or certainly its submission, or certainly summarizing and starting to be able to share the detail of that with analysts and stuff around the city. So I think there'll be kind of big things for the next few weeks. So no, I think there'll be lots to talk about before now, but between now and Christmas.
Well, we're looking forward to hearing all your updates, Ivan. Thanks very much for talking to us today.
Thanks a lot. Good to see you.